Please take a moment to listen to this disclosure from the Common Ground podcast. The Common Ground podcast is dedicated to exploring commonality among individuals with diverse perspectives. Our guests may present unique worldviews related to health, psychology, and overall well-being. Please note that the Common Ground podcast does not directly promote or endorse any specific ideas, concepts, or actions discussed during our episodes. Listeners are encouraged to approach the information shared with discernment and to consult with their mental and/or physical health providers before making any changes to their health or wellness practices. The views expressed by guests and hosts are their own and do not directly reflect the opinions of the Common Ground podcast. Your well-being is important, and we advocate for informed decision-making. Thanks for listening.
All of those things add up to putting myself in certain positions that led me to being sexually abused by my first real boyfriend.
I'm here to hold you and walk you through this and teach you how to constructively deal with these emotions. But guess what? Your boss is just going to fire you.
And I always believe that people can be redeemed. You can always find healing. I mean, always. There was one moment where I knew I am not going to go another year feeling this way.
Welcome to the Common Ground podcast, where stories connect, perspectives collide, and purpose is found in the middle.
Every week, we sit down with unique and inspiring guests that come from all walks of life, people who challenge the status quo, overcome the odds, and live with intentionality.
Whether you're driving to work, on your morning walk, or just looking for that spark to ignite your week, you're in the right place.
Welcome to the Common Ground podcast with your hosts, John Fletcher and Sydney Curtin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Common Ground podcast. I'm your host, Sydney Curtin, and joined with me is the mastermind behind the Common Ground Project USA, my partner in crime, John Fletcher. You can call him Philly. How's it going, John?
Oh, I thought you were calling out somebody else.
It's just your alter ego. We used to be schizophrenic, but we're better now. Sorry, John gets to do the dad joke. So don't let me steal your thunder. John, hit us with the dad joke.
All right, so little Susie and little Johnny were at work one day, and little Susie goes to the little Johnny that, you know what, I really don't feel like being here. She goes, but I got this covered. Because she saw her manager over inside across the room, so she climbs up to the rafters and hangs upside down from the rafters. Her boss comes over and goes, little Susie, what are you doing? She goes, I'm a light bulb. He goes, little Susie, I don't think you're feeling too well. Maybe you should take the rest of the day off. So little Susie climbs down and starts to leave. And little Johnny follows behind her. And the boss goes, little Johnny, where do you think you're going? He goes, you don't expect me to work in the dark, do you?
Oh, man. I think I like my schizophrenic joke. I was like, where is this going? I can't even tell you how many times I have power outages at my shop and we just plug through. It's just a story of my life. All right. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Common Ground podcast, everyone. Joined with us today is our very special guest and somebody that I have come to call a dear friend of mine. With us today, we have Sara Creque, who is a survivor advocate and the host of a brand new podcast. Your first episode was just released. Is that correct? We just launched the first one?
Yes, I did. Yes, very exciting.
So cool. So we've got Sara Creque here, and the name of her new podcast is Unquiet Healing, where Sara takes listeners past the polite surface and into the real, messy, and powerful truth of survival and overcoming trauma. She turns her scars into a megaphone on her new podcast, saying the things about trauma that most people are too afraid to say, and providing the story to prove that there is life on the other side of all of the things that you've been through. So, Sara, thank you so much for being with us today. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely.
So, Sara, why don't you tell everybody where you are calling in from today?
I'm calling in from northern Colorado, so my little town of Milliken, Colorado.
So how is it growing up in a small town?
Well, I actually grew up in the Denver area, so not very small at all, but it's not something I really miss. I don't miss being down in Denver. I love being up north. I've been up here quite a few years now, so I don't see myself going back to that city life.
That city life. So how do you feel about living in a small town now then, since you didn't grow up in one?
I love it. It's quiet, it's calm, it's safe. Everybody kind of looks out for each other, so I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on like the whole small town life versus big city because I'm grown up in a big city.
I'm not about that city life. I'm just not. I feel like I've always been near a big city in case I need to do anything. All of my work has been in the city, but I think that I can safely say, even though Fort Collins is considered pretty large now, which is the next major town that Sarah and I are located to outside of Denver, that I've always kind of been in small towns too. Sarah, how long have you been in Milliken, Colorado?
I've been in Milliken for just about a year, but I was in Johnstown for quite a few years, and then Loveland was where I first landed in northern Colorado. So been up here for a while, up in this area at least.
Yeah. Awesome.
Fun fact about me though, I did share this with Sarah earlier. Growing up, I've always been a diehard Eagles fan. The Eagles were always my number one football team. But I did grow up a John Elway fan and rooted for the Denver Broncos as my AFC team. Watched them lose the Super Bowl way too many times until they finally won one.
Until you finally hopped off the bandwagon.
No. I mean, I've always been an Eagles fan. Eagles first, even when they were playing the Broncos, even when they were playing John Elway. But they were my AFC team because I never rooted for an NFC team in the Super Bowl, so I kind of adopted them as my AFC team.
I think my least favorite teams are the Broncos and the Cowboys.
Well, I'm with you with the Cowboys.
It's true. I live here, so I can say that. Like, it doesn't, I'm a huge Eagles fan. Like, I am a huge Eagles fan. Eagles and Seahawks, ironically, but only because I've got a friend that plays for the Seahawks. So, but anyways,
Come on!
we're here or there. Sarah, are you a Broncos fan? We got to clear the air now. Now I got to know.
I am a Broncos fan.
Oh, shoot.
My son is a Raiders fan, unfortunately.
Oh, that's worse.
I'm like, how does that even happen? You're a Colorado native. Like, you have to give love to the home team. But, one of these days he'll learn, I guess. I hope. I don't know. That's the goal.
Right. And that kind of leads us into this just a little bit. So today we're talking about going from feeling invisible to helping others reclaim their voice. This is your story, and it's a powerful story from just the pieces of it that I've been able to hear. I know that you have a son, but for our viewers, tell us a little bit more about you today. What are you doing right now in life? You've got a baby. What are you doing for work? What's going on? Catch us up to speed with your day-to-day now.
Well, now I'm working with actually Sid in some sense, which is lovely with one of your companies, and shuttling a lot of vehicles, doing a lot of things for auto hail repair. It's a fantastic company. It's been a blessing to my son and I. And I just kind of get to take the whole day to soak in and learn a lot of podcast listening, lot of just music, learning, researching facts, talking a lot to Google. It's been kind of a wild ride. And I've kind of been in this little school of hard knocks as I've been driving. So I've been enjoying it. But I do have a son. He is 12, just turned 12 a couple weeks ago, just started 7th grade. And of course, in single mom fashion on a busy day like today, we were up at like 1 a.m. with the pukes and all the good stuff. So, I that's just kind of my thing. I'm going to show up how I am, kind of raw, unfiltered, unpolished, because it's real life. So I'm happy to be here. But yeah, my days have been busy and really enjoying it.
So really tell us how Sydney is as a boss. No, that's another
Oh,
podcast.
shoot. Yeah. I'm just air my garbage out here. You know what? That's what I was going to say, though. Like, fun fact about Sarah here. So, like, she does her podcast now that she's launched. She also proofread my book for me that was just published on Amazon and 10 other reading platforms. And so, like, she's been a huge blessing in my life. But ironically, I just met her on a Facebook group because I run 5 different companies. One of the companies that I run and operate, I needed drivers for. We had recently had a hailstorm that hit. I literally just needed somebody that had a driver's license and insurance. So my standards were real low. At this point, I was like, I'm not going to keep paying for Uber. Like, I just need somebody that is reliable and is going to show up on time and can speak to a human. And Sarah reached out to me, didn't know her, like had never met her, found out we were on some of the same Facebook groups, but like just briefly talked to her. And she has been such a rock star for me. That's just been moving. And then her son just like melted my heart. Like I want to adopt him. I love her son so much. He's great. And so learning about her story has just been really incredible. And it starts all the way back at your childhood too, correct?
It does. I mean, even before that, I'm a twin. So
Huh?
the beginning of my life was sharing a womb with my twin brother, and there were lots of complications. We were 6 weeks early. And so the more and more I have worked on healing my own trauma, the more I've realized it starts well before memory and consciousness, even in the womb, So it starts all the way from the beginning.
And part of your story, at least like from an early on perspective, it all starts from that concept of feeling unheard. So since childhood, you've articulated that you never felt like you measured up. Where do you think those feelings came from? Was it as far back as like that sibling having a twin and things like that, or was it something else?
I mean, I do. I think it starts in the womb, really. I was kind of born what my mom always called me as a fighter baby. I had less of everything. My twin was bigger. He kind of took more of the nutrients. And so I think kind of feeling neglected, even in the womb, not to fault mom, not to fault my brother, not to fault me. It's nobody's fault. It's just the way it is. And, such is life. And then moving forward into childhood, um, there were a lot of moments where I just felt unheard, wasn't listened to, was told I was too much, too dramatic, over the top in a male dominated home, um, Italian male dominated home. I was very much the black sheep and probably made a lot of people really uncomfortable.
And how do you feel like that? Do you feel like that started your path, you know, uh, in the direction that it was going, or do you feel like other things, you know, happened to bring your life the way it's going to go, and we're going to talk about?
Um, I mean, I think it started there. I think my internal dialogue, the root of my trauma, um, kind of the narrative I have in my head started at such a young age. And then as trauma happened during life, as it does for everybody, it just reinforced my negative beliefs, my negative narrative in my head of I'm not lovable unless I'm easy or pleasing other people or, being the good girl of the family. All those things started at a very young age. And then it just gets kind of reinforced as things happen in life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that you say that because another part of your story, going even just a little bit further into the early adolescent chapters in your life, you experienced sexual assault at a very young age too. And the reason that I'm bringing this up, it was a little later in our episode, but I think it's relevant to what you're saying because it's an alarming statistic. It's like 1 out of 4 women
Mhm.
experience sexual assault before the age of 21. And that was, I mean, that statistic is a couple years old, so it may have changed now. That was just the last time I checked. But it's interesting because I was a victim of that too. And while the circumstances are different, in reflection, I found that a lot of that was because of my perception, or at the time was because of my perception of my own self-worth. What was your experience like? Like, what led to those events for you?
100% agree with you. A big part of my podcast will be looking into things like my own accountability, my own codependency, my own need for validation. All of those things add up to putting myself in certain positions that led me to being sexually abused by my first real boyfriend. I mean, the first person I ever had really a sexual relationship with was abusing me and abusing me regularly. So the foundation of my sexuality was through abuse, and all of that really stems from me thinking that I'm not lovable, not worthy, I'm not worth being listened to. Um, all of that just led me right into that type of relationship.
What what could have your parents have done differently, or what do you feel could have changed to provide a different outcome?
I've thought a lot about this, and back in the day, I probably could have given you 1,000 things that they could have done and that they shouldn't have done. Where I'm at now in my space, in my healing, I feel like the only thing that they maybe could have done is just like sat with me and just let my feelings kind of go through that tidal wave of emotion. Okay, she's really upset, or this is what she's been through. I mean, if someone I think would have just sat with me, my dad worked 2, 3 jobs, mom worked and had us 3 kids. And I mean, being a twin, I obviously am getting half of the attention. I think, I really think if someone would have just taken time and said, this space is safe for you to just let it out, even if it's like screams, let it out.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not going to, what I'm about to say, I don't want you to think is necessarily my opinion. So, but I just want to hear your kind of response to it. I've kind of heard people say that, we baby kids too much. We make excuses. We definitely like kids used to be able to be tougher and handle all the stuff that happens to them, and now we're just raising a bunch of crybabies who blame their childhood for all their imperfections. How do you respond to somebody that says something like that?
My response to that is, and this is something that I thought a lot about, especially after I had my son, the whole walking away and letting them cry it out as babies is, we look at it as like, oh, they're just, kind of getting tough and realizing that, not everybody's going to be there to pick you up. Not everyone's going to be there to console you. And so they stop crying because they realize no one's coming. And when I look at it at that in that frame, it's like, I always want my kid to know mom's always coming. I'm always going to pick you up and be there for you. And sometimes you can't, right? My kid's gone through some bullying at school. And I tell you, he's called me multiple times, like begging me to pick him up. And there's times where it's like, I can't. But I'm the first person he calls still. And I think that kids were a lot tougher back then, if that's the word you want to use. But now we're those tough kids raising these weak kids. We're those tough kids raising our kids and focusing on mental health and focusing on bullying and telling kids it's okay to accept their bodies, no matter what it looks like. So, yes, I do believe some parents go overboard, babying too much, not forcing your kiddos to get out there. I think it's more them living their life, the parents living their kids' life for them, rather than
Yeah.
standing beside them and saying, you do have to get up and do this right now, but like, I'm right here with you.
Yeah. No, I really like the way that you paint that lens, because I think that what happened was we struggled with a generation of our parents. Sarah, you and I's parents were so emotionally disconnected, and it was still in a society where mom typically stayed home and dad typically went to work. Not always, but that was more common than it is now, where we have 2 working households, and the divorce rates have also spiked just astronomically. So now kids, not only do they have parents that were raised the tough kids, quote unquote, but now they've got 2 different households where they have to figure out how to navigate the volatility of the living environment when dealing with parents that don't know how to co-parent, or maybe one parent who does know how to co-parent and another that is unwilling to cooperate with what constructive co-parenting looks like. For me, also having young kids, it's like, I'm with you on the cry it out method. There's never going to be a time where my kids are upset that I'm not going to be there, especially in those early stages, because what is it, for like 6 months of the child's life, they literally view themselves as an extension of their mother. And so they don't understand how to process not being with their mom until a certain age. It's just biology. Now, on the flip side of that coin, I'll still whoop my kids' ass. Like, if you do something that's wildly uncalled for, like my 4-year-old bit my son yesterday twice. She said they were playing kitties. Okay. There were consequences. There's like a balance between, I do think that like you and I, our generation collectively was raised by parents that were on one side of the extreme. And then I see our generation go to the other side of the extreme. For me, it just kind of depends on the situation. It's like, okay, what are we looking, what's the emotion that we're dealing with? Because anger is a secondary emotion, but there are consequences for your behavior in society, and not everybody's going to coddle you like mom is. I'm here to hold you and walk you through this and teach you how to constructively deal with these emotions. But guess what? Your boss is just going to fire you. So there's still consequences in my home too.
Correct. Yes, definitely. And I think it's just a matter of allowing the child to process something. Let them process, let them cry it out, let them think it out, and let them feel safe that they can process in your lap, in your arms, be, just this melted puddle in your lap. And then we stand up and we go face the world.
Yeah. And I'm curious too, are your parents, are they married today?
They are not. They got divorced after almost 30 years of marriage.
What was their relationship like growing up? How do you remember their marriage?
They were definitely in love. I mean, very passionate. They had a lot of fun together. They worked hard together. But there was, volatility. There was fighting. I remember hearing arguing, yelling. Um, and then towards the end of their marriage and the end of their relationship, late teens for me, early 20s, especially when I was really struggling, they disconnected in a big way. There was an affair involved, and it was in a community that I grew up in that was so layered. Everybody knew all about it, and it was horrible. So there were a lot of different dynamics that my parents went through throughout the years, but that's what I remember. That was my experience.
And just for, I guess, figuring out the picture, did your parents go through stuff before your sexual trauma as a kid, or was that after?
I mean, they went through stuff as long as I can remember.
Did that in any way shape how or why you ended up with that boyfriend, or was that just purely your choice and you're just looking, because you talked about lack of self-esteem that led you to that? Was it the just wanting to be loved so badly, or was it something that you were also dealing with your parents' struggle in the midst of trying to figure out how you're going to live life? And
Yeah, I mean, I think that how I learned to argue, how I learned how to handle conflict, um, I definitely learned from my parents and their relationship. I saw like really high highs and really low lows. And I noticed that was like a reoccurring theme in my relationship. So, there's a lot of buzzwords out these days, but it's a lot of like the love bombing, the makeup romance type of thing, and just really low lows that I experienced in basically all of my relationships. And I can see how that kind of reflects my parents' relationship.
well,
It's
let me go in.
interesting. Go ahead, John.
I just wanted to follow up. Do you think your choice in men was reflected as almost self-sabotaging? Like, I'm going to choose men who I know I'm not going to end up with because I don't want to end up with somebody because they're going to eventually break my heart anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like the queen of self-sabotage. I th
Old me would have fought you for that crown, let me tell you.
it's like I really, I mean, not as of late, of course, but I mean, I can see how I chose partners that I mean, there were red flags all over the place. All over the place. And a lot of the things that I chose in men were very similar to my dad's traits or the men in my family, their traits, but it was always like not the good traits. Like my dad is like funny and charismatic, and so are my brothers and grandparents, uncles, they're successful, they work hard. Like there's so many amazing things about the men and women and just family, all the people in my life, but I always went after that negative. And I think it's like when you feel like chaos is home, that's what you seek in other people.
Yeah.
So all these relationships have told me that I'm not worthy, I'm not this, I'm not that. So I made sure to find that in my relationship, like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Well, and normality starts to feel abnormal. That's when you grow up in chaos or you learn behaviors that are not constructive to healthy relationships, your nervous system seeks that out because that's what you're familiar with. So even though it's not healthy or functional, your body is trained to survive and to only flourish in this fight or flight mode. I mean, one of the reasons that I do as much as I do, both of you know me, everybody that listens to our show knows all of the irons that I have in the fire. One of the reasons I'm so busy is because it's the most constructive form of chaos that doesn't affect my relationship. So I had to learn that though. I had to learn constructive ways to occupy my brain and undo that behavioral training and role modeling that I had demonstrated to me relationally, recognize that that wasn't constructive for myself or for my kids to have as their example set forth in life for what relationships should look like. So instead I built 5 companies and it's chaotic, but like we do this, like how we cope, right? Like you gotta do something with all of that energy. And you have a son, you're a single mom now, but you were married, correct?
Yes, I was married. I was with my ex-husband for almost 11 years.
It's a long time. And where did you meet him and what did those early years look like?
So I actually lived in an apartment above him with my mom. My parents had just gotten divorced and he had moved in with his mom below me and I met him. I knew his sister and his mom and even his daughters before I met him. Um and just we saw each other, got to talking and started hanging out.
How long after starting to see him did you get married? And how soon, either before or after that marriage, did you have your son?
So I actually did everything backwards. We got together, we moved in together. I was pregnant. I want to say I was pregnant, 6 months pregnant on our year anniversary, if that tells you anything. So we moved in, we were engaged for quite some time. I want to say we got married when we were together for about 5 or 6 years. So after our son, we were married in total of almost 5 years.
Now you said that the the perception that other people had of your family versus the perception of reality was kind of different. You re, you referred to it in our earlier meeting as outside people knew you as the perfect blended family. So tell us a little bit about that and what was really going on.
Yeah, I mean, I we looked like a beautiful blended family. I, like I said, met his daughters before I met him. Um, big red flag. He had done time in prison. I met him as this changed person that was changing lives in prison and doing all these wonderful things. Um, I got really close with his daughters. Their mom was not really around. She was really struggling with mental health, substance abuse, all of that stuff. So once I had entered in the picture and we were serious and moved in, she kind of never really came around again. I did move her in to try to help her. I loved her daughters so much that I was kind of willing to open up my home to her, which looking back on it is like crazy. But at the same time, when you love someone's kids, you're like, if I can help their mother, I'm going to help them. It's just kind of the person I am. Um, but anyways, we went through a lot of tough stuff in the beginning. My I was a stay-at-home mom with the kiddos. I had struggled big time with mental health. But from the outside, we had this beautiful picture of us going on these adventures together and us just coming together as a beautiful family. And then we have this baby boy, and it looks like one solid, beautiful unit. And then later, I became a personal trainer, and my ex-husband and I ice fished and hiked and backpacked. And so, of course, in the world of social media, it looks incredible. But, like I said once to my stepdad, he said, "Gosh, you guys go on these adventures and it's so amazing. And all the pictures, I mean, it's so cool." And I said, "Remember those pictures of me backpacking in Utah?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "When we got out of the car, he shoved me down the trail for about a half mile." So even though there's a picture of like hitting the trail, guys, as soon as the camera stops rolling, it's dangerous, it's scary, and it's this constant level of fear that we were all living under.
Yeah. It's it's interesting because there's usually, like you mentioned, the red flags that were kind of like the maybe the obvious red flags, but that got hid under the guise of that he was a changed person. Did you ever have like a gut feeling in the early days that something was off, or were there other red flags that maybe weren't quite so in your face? Because I think, in hindsight, you can see something like that and be like, okay, that wasn't quite what I thought. But I also don't want to not acknowledge the fact that people can have a criminal history and have real change. So, like, what else was there behaviorally and in the relationship dynamic that led you to like recognize, okay, this is like actually part of his personality or part of who he is. It's now not just a one-off situation.
There were a couple of instances where I was like, hold the phone. But I do want to say beforehand is, I always believe that people can be redeemed. You can always find healing. I mean, always. However, even his family had lied to me about what he really went to prison for. So
Wow.
there were so many protections in place, and he was able to create this narrative that, I mean, everyone else kind of chipped in and added lighting. One added good sound. One added, to create this picture of, oh, he's got rough circumstances. Like the girl's his mom really put him in tough situations, and really like kind of he's the victim sort of thing. But
Now, did they lie or did he lie to them?
it was
Like,
more,
were you able to find out that they were actually being dishonest, or had he also deceived them and they were just echoing what he had told them?
it was both. So later on in our divorce, and the Department of Human Services had to open up a case on my ex-husband for abuse and neglect on the children. When that case opened, there's basically like a whole investigation, like this discovery, right? This document that everything that's being brought to the judge's table, like, here's what we have found. And that's when I saw his full criminal record and was completely shocked. Shocked. And this is after divorce, after a restraining order. I mean, I was like, I never actually knew the person I was with. So there was that element of it. And then other elements of his family really blaming the mother of his children and everyone else in his life, and not telling me the level of abusiveness. I mean, but they were scared of him too. And it just goes to show how deep. I almost feel like an abuser's like an octopus, and their legs are just out and they're touching everything and sticking to everything. And you might think you're reaching out into the ocean and grabbing a fish and you're able to pick it up, but that leg is attached. So nothing quite is what it seems when you're with someone who is an abuser like him.
Excuse me. Um, so you said that, you believed everybody can be redeemed. And I can totally totally relate to that. I know in my marriage with my ex, I always saw the good person she was. Always hoping that she wanted to be the good person that I saw in her. Um, what was rock bottom for you? When was it that you finally realized that things aren't going to get better? People can be redeemed, but he doesn't want to be redeemed. Because that's what eventually happened to me. I was like, I want her to be good. I want her to change because she loves me. But I came to that realization one day that that's not going to happen. So what was rock bottom for you? What was that moment that you were like, yeah, things aren't going to get better?
Yeah,
Where leaving's no longer an option, it's a necessity.
correct. There was one moment where I knew I am not going to go another year feeling this way. It was our last anniversary that we spent together. We had gone down to Santa Fe, New Mexico. I was raised in the Catholic Church and kind of veered away from the church. Um, and we had visited all these beautiful historic Catholic places down in Santa Fe. Um, and I felt this level of peace, this being called home type of feeling, this reconnection with my higher power. And everything got drastically more chaotic after that. After I had this wave of emotions, feeling of like I am a child of God and I'm destined for greater. And this is when I really started feeling the imbalance, like you were mentioning earlier, Sydney, about the central nervous system. Mind you, when I went on this vacation, I had snuck behind my ex-husband's back multiple times to find therapy, to get help. I was about 9 months into EMDR therapy. So I was rewiring my central nervous system and working really, really hard on that. We went down to New Mexico. I had this amazing experience. It got to a point where I ended up getting really sick, and I was in the back, very back of our vehicle, laying down, and he had lost it on me, freaked out, thrown hot coffee on me, screamed at me, driving erratic. And I thought, oh my God, if this is what we're doing on our anniversary, then what the hell is left? What is left? What's left is I'm either going to kill myself or we're not going to survive. If something scary, something horrible is going to happen. Not long after that, I literally sold my firearm knowing it was going to be the end of my life, whether I took my life or he took my life. There's just this click in my brain of, I've got to get the hell out of here. I have to lower the threat and then find a way to get out of here. He consistently kicked me out multiple times in our marriage. And that last time he kicked me out, it was about a month later. I said, I'm never going back. And I sat in my car and I cried. And I knew I had just mourned my marriage, that I was never going back. I was done. And the decision I made to leave, leaving everything behind, and I knew what would come with that, with him being my abuser. That was a better situation, a better outcome, me possibly living in a ditch than staying in that marriage in our beautiful home with all of our things, all of our stuff, and security, or what people perceive to be security.
Right. And it's almost interesting because, like, when you said that you were either going to end your life or you were going to end the marriage, that it was going to be the death of the relationship or the death of yourself, and that you chose to get rid of your firearm because of that. it was almost like you had made the decision to fight for yourself. Like it was surrender, but it was choosing you at the same time, in the same breath, which is like a really powerful analogy for what you were going through at the time too. And the decision that you made, even with something like that. How did being a mom influence your decision for leaving?
Being a mom, I was influenced by me knowing that this cycle is going to repeat. That, it's something my EMDR therapist always drove home was, if you're around domestic violence, it is abuse. If you're around parents that are using or whatever it might be, that's neglect, which is abuse. Those types of things always replayed in my head. Like, I can sit and point the finger at him, but being stuck in this and allowing my children to go through it and suffer it is worse. I mean, it's my job to protect them. But in those moments when it really was like I couldn't see past living or dying myself, me knowing that my kids could potentially be the ones that find me, and I know what scar that would bring, that's what kept me going. And then once my head got a little bit clearer when it wasn't so much I'm gonna die, then I could focus more on how do I heal and focus, get out of here, help them see that there's another way, that I'm not crazy, that what we're living in is crazy.
So I totally understand and agree with you, and I totally love Sydney's point of when did you choose yourself. But my question is, because I can remember the day that I chose myself, and I remember the day that I walked out. And it doesn't stop there. I remember, because I know that for me, like my ex-wife, she's like, come back, I'll change, I'll do whatever. I'm sure he kind of said the same kind of stuff to you. There were multiple times where I had the opportunity to unchoose myself. And there was actually one time 6 months after I originally separated that we went back and we explored going back to each other. And I realized very quickly that it was a facade, and I was like, now what am I doing? Why am I even considering? But I'm considering because I know, because you were married for 11 years. I was married for 17. Well, 17 by the time I got divorced. But that's a long time. And you can't love somebody for that long and just shut it off. So how did you continue to love yourself? Because I know there must have been opportunities to give up on yourself.
For sure. And I think the EMDR was a big piece for me because I don't see it as loving someone so much and then like having to shut it off. And that's difficult. I see it as I'm in this trauma bond with this person, right? He had been through a lot of similar trauma that I'd been through, which I didn't even know about until the very end, basically, um, like many other things. But I was trauma bonded to this person. And with the EMDR therapy and having some space from him, being able to calm my system down, I mean, it's a big disruption to my system, to my nerves, to my body, to my pain, to my mental health. As soon as he has access to me, there's a shift. And one of the things that, I mean, he constantly tried nonstop, right, to bring me back, which I always thought was so odd. And definitely his trauma of asking for a divorce basically the minute we got married, right? Kicking me out all the time. And then the minute I'm like, you're getting what you asked for 150 times, he was clamoring to get me back, desperate, stressed out, stalking me, all these weird things. Towards the end of when he stalked me and I had to get the police involved and my son was with me The next day, I ended up getting my restraining order. The night before, he called me and said about my oldest stepdaughter, who I call my daughter. She's pregnant. She's 15. I need you to come home and be a grandma. I need your help. And I said, no, she can come here anytime. She can knock on my door. I got her back. I'll take her in, whatever she needs. That was all a lie. She was never pregnant. I mean, all of the things that he would bring to my lap, or like he'd try to like reel me in, come back, I'll let you adopt the girls if you come back. I mean, that's literally like my life's dream, to adopt my daughters. Come back, you can adopt the girls. It was all a lie. He would never have given me control, that type of control, the rights to his children. He would never. So minimal things happened, little things here and there. He helped me moved into my place before I got my restraining order. And again, we got a little talking one night, a little close to each other, and then it turned into him yelling at me, telling me that my love is bad. I'm wrong. I'm bad. I'm evil. I'm nasty. No one's going to want me. And I was like, oh, yeah, you can get the hell out. Like, now this is my space, and I can feel this all over my system and even outside of my body that this is not right. And I want you far away from me.
And so you mentioned EMDR a couple times. So for our viewers that do not know what EMDR is, I'm going to break that down real quick, and then I have a follow-up question to ask in conjunction with what we're talking about. So for our viewers who are listening and don't know what EMDR is, or maybe you've heard about it but don't know a lot about it, EMDR is a form of psychotherapy that helps people process through trauma that they have a strong emotional charge to, or sometimes even bodily reaction. It's very commonly associated with post-traumatic stress disorder. EMDR stands for eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. The reason that it works is because it's stimulating the bilateral parts of your brain to take the emotional events that you've been through and process them from the amygdala, or the emotional part of your brain, and refile them to the prefrontal cortex, or more logical part of your brain, so that you don't have that same bodily or emotional charge or strong reaction that happened with these traumatic events that you endured. So just for all of our viewers who don't know what that is, I've gone through some EMDR too. I will say to any of our viewers, just as a disclosure, that have heard of EMDR or are considering EMDR, I highly encourage you to check the qualifications of the therapist that's executing the EMDR, because I had a miserable experience with EMDR, but with my background in psychology, I know factually that it is a very effective form of therapy, and it just needs to be done by somebody that really, really knows what they're doing to make sure that you're in really good hands with that type of practice. But it sounds like it worked miracles for you.
It really did. And you know what's funny is when I sought out my EMDR therapist, I had basically searched intense trauma therapy. And then I also Googled men's issues or men's trauma specialist, because I wanted to understand my husband so I could fix my marriage. So I ended up with this male therapist who couldn't have been a better fit for me. And I think that sometimes we go into therapy thinking, this is what we want, this is what we need. And it's kind of fun to step into something like that you wouldn't necessarily pick for yourself. So I got into it with my therapist. He was a straight shooter. He did not coddle me. He approached everything with curiosity and a ton of questions. And he spent a lot of time with me. I want to say like the first year and a half, 2 years probably, of resourcing. So calming that nervous system, and then creating my safe space in my brain, right? Of all my kind of little pieces of my psyche. I gave them all faces, names. It took a long time to get to where I could even start reprocessing that trauma. And like you said, bringing it back to your prefrontal cortex where you can kind of logically piece it together. It took a very long time to get there. And I started noticing results probably within the first 2 months of being able to calm myself down. I had done therapy for so many years with so many different types of therapists, and nothing ever really seemed to work other than the EMDR therapy.
It's really cool. And marriage, like with any profound relationship, right? When you have a marriage or a relationship that lasts that long, pieces of that relationship become part of your identity. Like, I'm married. So like my marriage is part of my identity. What was the most surprising thing that you learned about yourself when you left that marriage and when you started to heal?
That's a good question. Um, I started really using my voice, telling my story to more people, and just like having random conversations about this kind of stuff with people. And what is so unique about my story is that it's like not unique at all. There are so many people out there with a family like mine, um, that I just wish people would know this is supposed to make you feel isolated. It's supposed to make you feel alone. Um, but like I said, that saying just keeps repeating in my head recently of the most unique thing about my story is it's not unique at all. And
Yeah.
that's the problem. That's why I want to talk about it. It's
No, but
like,
I love that though. It's not that it's not unique because the circumstances are, but like you talk about in your podcast, Unquiet Healing, which I really love the title of. It's like it's just that we've been silenced. Somebody that's suffered from an abuser or a narcissist or somebody that struggles with addiction, where when you're in a marriage with somebody like that, that takes over their personality and then we become the punching bags. So it's not that it's uncommon, it's just that people feel silenced. And so Unquiet Healing is a great space to talk about that.
yeah. And unquiet was something that it really struck me because we think about healing, right? When you kind of like sneak away and you have these conversations in like dimly lit rooms and like it's totally private and HIPAA is usually involved. And like,
Mm.
that's how we are supposed to heal, right? You come back when you're looking better, feeling better, and all that good stuff. Well, right now, like I'm showing up physically, not how I would ever want to show up on camera. I'm probably the heaviest I've ever been in my life. But you know what? That's also a part of me staying quiet, keeping myself heavy, keeping myself quiet. Nobody look at me, nobody touch me, nobody desire me because of my trauma. Well, you know what? It's time to be unquiet, to get loud, to heal in front of people, to talk about things that I've overcome, even though I'm still in the thick of it all. There's a lot of stuff behind me that, like I said, I didn't think I was going to survive. So, that unquiet element, the unquiet healing element of the podcast, yeah, it's just about getting loud, showing up, exactly as you are.
And I couldn't agree more. I so also loved um that word unquiet. I thought it was really a cool perspective on it, and I really appreciated it. Um, because we can, dude, I know we could do a 4 or 5 hour podcast with you. But as we start to wrap up, if present day Sarah could go back to little girl Sarah, what what age would you go back to, and what would you say to her?
Ooh, that's interesting. I would probably go back to the Sarah that I call scared child in my EMDR work. This is my first memory of us moving. And I remember sitting on the floor, like so sad that we had like left a penny on the floor. Like, I cannot believe we're leaving this behind. This is a piece of us and we're leaving. And no one acts like it's a big deal. And here I am sitting here and we have to rush out the door. Like this scared kid that no one seems to be paying attention to, all the action scurrying around. I would sit down next to her and I would say, like, this is probably loaded for that little girl, but Like, let's unpack this. Let's talk about it. Come sit in my lap. Let me hold you. Let's work it out and teach her how to stand up and walk out and move on. But biggest focus would be the trauma, stopping that trauma when it's happening, changing that negative dialogue, that self-fulfilling prophecy when you have these negative experiences and you internalize them in some way. It would be totally trauma focused and safe.
This is something just to throw out there and to think about, and love the audience, this response to this too. When you were talking about stopping trauma, something came to my mind. Should we be stopping trauma, or should we learn how to deal with trauma? Because I don't think you can ever stop all trauma from ever happening. But one thing I think none of us have ever learned before we experienced it was how to deal with it. And how to, I think that is such I don't know, such an important thing that we need to teach kids. And like that should be our education system. Like how to deal with trauma, because I think the bigger issue is not that we have things that are going to totally blow up our world, because we're not God. We can't stop everything from happening. But learning the skill set to deal with it can affect, like, it's not the fact that you dealt with trauma as a kid, is the undealt with trauma that you dealt with as a kid, right? It's the trauma that you've held on for decades that was never resolved.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Yeah. I think it comes down to not having a safe space to process the trauma that's happening. I keep mentioning like sitting down next to someone. If we have someone that can meet us where we're at in those traumatic moments, it can change everything for us. Meet us where we're at. Even the delusional thinking, thinking, oh, my life's on the line, and it like really isn't. If we had someone that could just meet us where we're at and not tell us how we're supposed to feel and not tell us, oh, don't be worried about that. Yeah, because that's helpful, because I'm not already worried about it, you know? And this type of these experiences have helped me change how I am as a parent. I love that I'm now able to show up as the parent that I needed, and showing up as a parent that's curious as to, do you want a solution? Do you want advice? Do you just want me to hold you? Those were questions that I was never asked as a kid. Sometimes you just don't want to hear a thing. You just want mom to hold you and rock you, So yes, you can't stop trauma. That's life. And that's really what makes life beautiful. I wouldn't take back anything that I've been through. I really wouldn't. But being able to process it and not internalize it in some type of maladaptive way is the goal.
Key takeaways.
And now it's time for our key takeaway segment, where we will each give our takeaway from the discussion we had today. And for me, it is, I just love what you said earlier, and I think that really stuck out to me. And it was when talking about Unquiet, that, trauma, a lot of trauma tends to make people curl up and become almost invisible, or they want to become invisible because they want nobody to see the trauma. And I loved the whole contrast of that and Unquiet Health, where instead of hiding, to be bold and to be out there with it. And I think that was really cool. That was even I just love the way you explained it, because even when we talked about unquiet health, I didn't see that perspective of it, of the hiding versus you had talked about being bold and living, healing out loud, but the added dimension of, instead of curling up in a ball and hiding behind a rock, be unquiet. And it's that contrast that really just was a key takeaway for me. And as I look back at my life too, wow, how many times have I tried to curl up in the ball and be quiet?
It's really common that abusers and narcissists and people with those tendencies, combined or separate, do that to people. I mean, it was a big takeaway for me too. Everybody that knows me knows I'm about as subtle as a gun. So I'm the wrong person to put in that corner, because it will be a dog fight and I have bigger teeth than you. But I think that it's powerful though, and I wish more people would do it. And it's gonna make your podcast extremely powerful. And I hope that it really positively impacts all of the listeners who hear it. So we can't wait to support you in that journey. I think that my biggest takeaway is that leaving an abuser isn't just about leaving that person. It's about walking back into yourself. It's about reclaiming your peace.
Yeah.
And it's about proving that what was once just survival can turn into a life not just worth living, but worth celebrating.
Yeah.
Because everything that you're doing now that I've had the blessing to be able to endure, it's beautiful. And it's not just worth living, it's worth boasting in.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I guess I feel that way too. I feel like, you can't get bold results with quiet living. I mean,
Yeah.
there's many things that I'll be diving into my podcast that got me to gain confidence, because I'm the best hibernator. I swear my social anxiety about a year ago was so bad I couldn't even get to the grocery store. Now I am sitting here on camera and I'm
Driving
terrified.
random people's cars every day.
And I'm terrified. And I'm telling everybody all my business. But I do know that I feel like it's my calling to share this kind of thing, because again, my story is not unique, and that is the problem. And that's why we need to talk about it.
I love it. So, Sara, if there was another maybe single mom or a mom that was in a toxic marriage right now listening to this podcast, what would you want her key takeaway to be? What would be the first step that you would tell that woman to take?
The first step I would tell her to take is, however you can safely reach out to somebody, reach out to somebody. Abusers love to keep you isolated. And sometimes when you're in family dynamics, this generational stuff that I've had to really break free of, pick your audience wisely. Some people will make excuses for your abuser or what you're going through, or tell you, well, they're not beating you, so calm down, type of thing. Or, well, God, what is it going to do to the kids if you leave? No, if there's abuse involved, you've got to put your head down and not make any excuses after deciding it's time to go. Reach out to help, reach out to domestic violence hotlines, go to a local shelter, talk to somebody at work. There's all different kinds of ways that you can communicate with people and hide messages and things like that. Look for therapy. If you are able to access your health insurance privately and all those things, I would do my appointments virtually at work. I would clock out, eat while I was in therapy. And, there's ways to get help. You've just got to keep searching. Do not stop. If one therapist isn't a good fit, try 50. Do not stop, because it never gets better. And you have to get better for the people that love you, for yourself, and for all of those out there that haven't survived it.
Amen. I love it.
I love it too. And for our listeners, this is where we invite you to give us your key takeaway from the episode today. We really love listening to what you take away from our episodes. So please comment below on whatever platform you're listening to and share that with us. And before I get into the final five, I want to say something real quick. I know when we talk about issues like this, like abuse, domestic violence, narcissism, that it's usually that the victim is a female, and gets associated with females. But men are victims also. And, you know, men, if you're a male and you're listening to this, you need to get the same help. You need to seek the same attention. I know when I was seeing a therapist, before I got separated, this therapist said to me, if you were a woman, you'd be in a shelter right now. And that was a sad statement for her to say, because there are men out there who need shelters. There are men out there who need help. There are men out there dealing with these same issues. And and I know that I've heard, oh well, the courts are no longer biased. They're biased. The courts are, there's resources out there for everybody. No, there isn't. Men don't have the resources women do. We need better for men. We need our men to heal just like we need our women to heal. And this is a guy who dealt with trauma, who dealt with, narcissism. And, it's just a plea that, don't forget about the men. And don't belittle a man because he's reaching out for help. I know when I first was thinking of walking away, my family convinced me to stay. They convinced me to stay for my children. They convinced me to stay. And I wonder if I was their daughter and sister, whether they would have been giving me the same advice.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's just a call, that for men and that they need the same consideration.
Absolutely. Thanks for saying that.
I'm glad
And
that. Sorry, John. My apologies.
no, good.
I was just going to say that I actually have a good friend of mine that he'll be coming on Unquiet Healing, talking about his experience with, being alienated as a parent and the abuse and how the court system protects our abusers. I share custody with my abuser. It's like a sick joke. Handing over your most precious cargo to the one that tried to destroy you. It's insane, but men go through it just as much as women. I mean, you look at the statistics of men going through abuses and not speaking out. I mean, my ex-husband was one of them, never spoke out. It's out there. It happens. And we do need to pay attention to our men.
And if you're a man and have experienced that and want to come on our podcast, we'd love to have you as a guest.
The final five.
That brings us to the final five. And thank you, Sarah, for saying that. That brings us to our final five, where we ask the final five questions of the podcast. So, Sarah, question number one is, who is your hero and why?
Okay, that's a great question. I would probably have to say she's a saint, Mother Cabrini. She's such a badass. She was a tiny woman with a horrible lung condition, was not supposed to live past a certain age. Pushed to start helping people, helping war refugees, especially in Asia, was turned down by the Pope himself face to face, and she refused to let people close doors in her face. She did a lot of amazing missionary work here, and there's even a shrine here in our state of Colorado where a miracle was performed. She struck a rock with her cane, and water came out, and it helped support her missionary, everything that she was doing. Built schools, hospitals. She's the most incredible woman in the tiniest package that was facing probably the biggest leader in the world, the Pope. I mean, her badassery knows no limits.
I just love badassery and scene all in the same.
That's the only way I can describe our lovely saint, Miss Mother Cabrini. Yes.
It's a good combination there. Next question for you is, what was an unexpected joy you discovered in life after leaving your marriage?
Getting to know myself, taking myself out. Something I really enjoyed was I always like to explore, like I talked about. I did that in my marriage, but the biggest joy is going and exploring the world and talking to people and learning about stuff without anybody rushing me through, telling me to be quiet. Don't talk to anybody when we go in here type of stuff. Like I can just show up as me. Just recently I went to my local little festival by myself, started talking with this 75-year-old woman with this incredible story. We exchanged numbers. We're friends now. This is the kind of stuff that lets me kind of like let my freak flag fly. Like tell me all the things about your life and let me learn all the stuff and try all the new food. And that freedom of just exploring, that eat, pray, love type of outlook has just been so lovely. And I hope everybody gets to experience it.
And question number 3 is, if what book or quote or verse or saying has been very either impactful, changed your life, or something that you just live by, and why?
I have to give a big shout out to Mel Robbins on this one. She's really big right now for the let them theory. My dad actually turned me on to her book, The 5-Second Rule. I listened to it on Audible. And it changed my life because I gained all this knowledge in EMDR therapy, right? I calmed my central nervous system. I had gotten out of abusive marriage. I went through a couple court cases with no lawyer, no money. I went through a lot of hard stuff, but still found myself holding back. Like I said, hibernating, sitting in my depression, sitting in my dead-end job that was not making my bills happen, but I kept showing up. This 5-second rule is basically you have a goal in your mind or you see something that can get you to your goal. You have 5 seconds, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off, picture a rocket, whatever it is. Get up, move your feet, make it happen. Shake the hand at work. Ask for help. I approached Sydney at one point and put my whole heart on the line. Like, I just need someone to trust me, to give me a chance to put myself out there, to make more money, to gain more independence. This 5-second rule was my ignition switch. I'm never, ever going to feel ready to get up and face the day. I'm never going to feel ready to go and put on a pretty face and shake hands and network and ask people to take a chance on me. Like, I'm never in the mood. I'd rather lay in bed and watch Real Housewives of wherever they're from. Like, pick a season, I'll watch it and hang out all day. So this 5-second rule got me out of bed, got me up and walking and getting some sun on my skin, got me having that tough conversation with a family member, got me to set boundaries that I needed to set boundaries with, certain people, or starting this project, starting my podcast. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh my gosh, my podcast isn't ready. Publish. I'm just going to hit submit. We're putting it out there. It is what it is. I'm never going to be in the mood to share this. So I have to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 it. So shout out to Mel Robbins for the 5-second rule.
We had a different 5-second rule when I grew up. when we dropped a piece of food, we had 5 seconds to pick it up and eat it, kiss it to God. You first kissed it to God and then you could eat it.
Makes it safe.
Made it safe.
Oh, it's so great.
That's too funny. That's actually not where I thought you were going with that. Based on like the harsh parenting thing, I thought we were talking about like when mom snaps the belt and is like 5. Just like looks into your soul, just like that eye contact. It's just, we're talking about food.
Yeah.
Oh man. My next question to you is going to be in light of something that you brought up multiple times in this podcast. So I want to give you the opportunity to highlight it. Sometimes when we're going through leaving this type of marriage or a narcissistic marriage, as John had endured, whatever it may be, God intentionally puts people in our life that we maybe least expect. And they just show up in ways that like we could never even account for. It's just God orchestrated. God orchestrated. Who do you want to shout out in your life for showing up for you when you had to go through this journey with you and your kiddos?
I would have to say our CASA volunteer that we had on the case. My CASA volunteer is basically a child advocate, a friend to the child, like in this case, that can ask questions and have fun with the child and show interest in them and just give them a safe space to hang out with someone that will kind of report their experience right to the courts. She saw the truth in our situation very early on. And obviously, because of her trauma, what she had been through, she was the perfect person to have on our case. She had talked me off a ledge a couple times. It was really, really, really difficult. Like we talked about the courts protecting our abusers. I mean, my ex could refuse to have the courts in his home for 6 months, but they were in my home every, 4 days. So she was there as a great advocate for my child, such a safe space to him. She's family to us now. But her support for me let me know, like, your experience is being validated. I see this from a mile away. When he says this or accuses you of this, like, I can see the truth. And of course, she can't share those things with me during a case at all. But I thank God that I did get some of this validation after the case, and just her support, lending an ear, showing up for my kiddo, giving us a sense of normalcy and relaxation during these visits for the courts. She really saw a genuine side of me, my parenting, my child, and my household. And for that, I'll be forever grateful.
That's awesome. Very cool.
And the final question is, if you could sit down, have a beer, and a conversation with somebody living or dead, who would it be and why?
I'm going to have to go with the late, great Anthony Bourdain. He was so cool and charismatic and struggled so deeply and showed up authentically. And everywhere he went, he learned, he laughed, he loved, he showed respect, he got respect. I love the way he moved through the world. And it breaks my heart that he was not able to survive his demons. But I just think his voice is such a beautiful one that I would love to revisit. I would love to pick his brain. And I would love to tell him, like, what a lasting impact he had on so many people.
That's from cool.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, this has been awesome. Sara, thank you so much for being with us today. And if our listeners want to find you outside of our podcast, maybe even outside of yours, what's the best way that they can connect with you?
They can find my Unquiet Healing page on Facebook and also on Spotify. It's under Unquiet Healing. You can also check maybe Unquiet Healing podcast, a hashtag Unquiet Healing podcast. That will be able to get you somewhere in Facebook and in Spotify.
Awesome. And before we leave, I just want to say, I'm so grateful to have had you on our podcast, and I know what you've gone through, but you are worthy. You are enough. You are loved. You are cherished, and you are going to bring so much hope to people. And I am just, we are so grateful to have you as part of the Common Ground family. And so I just want to say that to you because I think you're awesome, and I just appreciate you. So
Yeah.
you're welcome. Remember, when we take the time to hear someone's story, it gives us the opportunity to find common ground. Thank you, Sara, for being our guest today. It has been our pleasure to be your host for Sydney and for myself. You have been listening to the Common Ground podcast. Good night and God bless.
And that's it for today's episode of the Common Ground podcast. We hope you're leaving with a little more perspective, a little more purpose, and a whole lot more inspiration.
So thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it. Thank you to our special guest.
If today's conversation moved you, encouraged you, or challenged you in any way, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, rate it, leave us a review. Your support helps us reach more people who need to find their own common ground.
So for John Fletcher and Sydney Curtin,
we'll see you right here next week, same time, same place on the Common Ground podcast. Make it a great week.